Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most outrageous case someone has asked you to take? I worked on a custody dispute between a mother and grandmother, where both sides were absolutely outraged by the other's claims. The mother was very upset that she was alleged to have been a stripper. I was a prostitute, but I was never a stripper. The grandmother in return was furious that she was alleged to have 21 cats in her 2-bedroom apartment. We only have 17 cats. How dare she flat out lie and say that we have 21 cats. The child ended up living with the father in a different state. As a public defender, I defended a grown man accused of stealing magic cards from Walmart. There was an hour-long security video meticulously showing, from dozens of angles, that he was picking up sets of cards, unwrapping them and discarding the wrappers around the store. He insisted that he was innocent and we actually went to a jury trial instead of securing a plea deal. It took the jury 8 minutes to convict him and the judge laid into my client telling him that he was the worst thief he had ever seen. I forgot the best part. At one point in the trial I had to spend 45 minutes explaining to the judge what magic cards are. He couldn't understand why anyone need more than one deck. A year out of law school I once had a potential client who wanted me to sue Canada. Apparently he could not get into the country due to his felony record. I tried to reason with him that it was up to the sovereign nation to set its own rules regarding entry to the country, but he insisted that we could make a lot of money suing Canada. I didn't take the case, but I told him I might be able to get him a letter that said sorry from Canada. Edit its to its. I dictated this on my phone as I was getting coffee. Thank God for the grammar people on Reddit for saving me from this catastrophic mistake in life. Family law attorney here. I just had a custody case go back to court over eyeglasses. My client didn't like the glasses her ex bought the kid. So stupid. I want to go back to criminal defense. Gang homicide cases had nicer people to deal with than family law. That sounds like something my parents would have gone to court over. Divorced parents, please remember it's the kid. You are really hurting, not your ex. I'm not a lawyer, but as a child I was taken into foster care and then returned to my father's custody, so he had custody of me from ages 4-16. When I was 22 he tried to sue me for the costs involved in caring for me for that time, saying that he had no obligation to take custody of me and had only done so to save me from foster care. It was obviously dismissed and I don't talk to him anymore. I had a potential client come and say that he wanted to sue his uncle for murder. Setting aside the fact that you can't sue someone for murder, I asked him who did his uncle murder. He replied me. I turned the case down. While working at a plaintiff's employment firm, 2 memorable consults came in. 1. Guy gets fired for being late too much. Wants to sue for discrimination because he has a sugar addiction and needs to stop at 7-Eleven for a big gulp before his shift begins. As a result he usually ends up missing the bus. 2. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit. All the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. Edit. Grammar typos. A woman called saying that she had a product liability suit involving animal crackers she gave to her daughter. I was thinking it was going to be something to do with food poisoning and keep listening. She explained that when she looked at the crackers, it looked like the monkey was holding its pen 15. It was a banana. This woman was mortified and ashamed. She said she told all her co-workers and they were very shocked and uncomfortable. I wanted to tell her she was nuts and that they were probably freaked out because you were talking about animal cracker big digs. Not a lawyer, but my uncle once had a client trying to sue Sears for distributing pornography to minors because he caught his 12-year-old son masturbating to the lingerie section. The Sears catalog. The golden years of print pornography. Kids these days are spoiled with the internet. Back in my day we had to work for the jerk. There's a lot of them. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. I regularly get phone calls promising to make me a millionaire if I'll sue the police. There's a completely guilty 6 offender sitting in jail who wanted me to handle his appeal under circumstances that would have resulted in him being released, then immediately charged and convicted of a more serious crime. So many. Lawyer in a small town here. I mostly do estate planning, probate, old people stuff, etc. I have a client that sued his ex-wife for not selling the house after the divorce as she was supposed to. Judge held her in contempt and asked what he wanted my client to do, and he had her thrown in jail. They are both nearly 80 years old. The client also has something valuable buried on his property for his grandchildren after he dies. I have a sealed letter in my desk that he pays me a goodly sum each month to hold and give to his grandson when the old man dies. A woman had cut off her husband's hand maliciously and was facing time and a divorce. She wanted me to help her sue the knife manufacturer for damages. Walking to work at the moment. I could probably let you know a few more if you are interested. Source: work in law firm in Cleveland, Ohio. Criminal prosecutor here. A patrol officer pulled over a driver for some traffic violation. After a heated roadside exchange where the driver initially refused to turn over her license, she ultimately relented and thrust the license with undue force into the officer's outstretched hand. The cop charged her with aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer. When asked to justify his actions, he stated that people need to learn to respect the police. We dismissed the charge, apologized to the defendant, and told the cop to never bring us something like that again. I can't recall if Internal Affairs was notified. I work with the police every day, and the majority of them are good people. This guy was a sheet. I remember a guy called me and wanted to take action against the post office. He had received a letter from them saying that they would no longer deliver packages to him as he was never appropriately dressed when he opened the door to accept them. I remember being nervous about asking him to elaborate. Years ago, I had someone ask me, informally, whether he should sue the Jerry Springer Show because they turned his family down as guests. Yeah, out of there real quick. My parents are both attorneys. Most recently, their batshit crazy neighbor asked my dad to serve as his attorney in a slip and fall suit against my parents. He had come over unannounced and uninvited at 6 AM on a snowy morning and fell down our driveway. My dad was the one who helped him up and called the ambulance on his behalf. The next day, crazy neighbor dropped off legal documents in my parents' mailbox for my dad to look over to see if he had a case against my dad. And this is why I hate people. Criminal defense social worker at a legal aid organization. I had a client who ran 3 red lights on a very busy street, knocked over a police officer, drove up on the sidewalk, forcing people to jump out of the way, and was finally dragged out of his car in a parking lot. He wanted us to refer him to a civil attorney to sue the city because an officer was too rough with him during his arrest. I mean, I get it. They were probably rough with him. Police brutality in my city is real. But good luck with that lawsuit. I'm late to the game. Lawyer. Once had a gentleman come to my office with an interest in suing his former employer. My office is general civil litigation, and I handle our employment matters. As an aside to that, he also specifically asked for a female attorney for reasons not related to this story. I met with him for about half an hour. He explained that he had been terminated from his employment and believed it to be gender biased. In my jurisdiction, an employer needs to show a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason for discharge. And while this hurdle can be overcome, it's a high one. I asked him if he had ever been disciplined, cited, or written up in the past, to establish if the employer would be able to say he was an unfit worker. If he had an unblemished record, our job is easier. He said yes. 12 times. In 2 years. I finished the interview, thanked him for his interest in our business, but told him we would not be able to take the case. I sent him off with a few referral numbers, but I don't know if he ever found someone to take his case. A fellow came to me in 1996 and said he was able to stop his grand mal seizures by smoking pot. He was a very difficult, sometimes abusive hothead with a long history of criminal cases. He had no money. He wanted to make pot legal in Canada. Many lawyers had already turned him away. I took it on. Very reluctantly. It was obviously a complete long shot. But I was young and ambitious. George Soros Foundation learned about the challenge, funded the case and provided some experts. A few years later, and too many hours, arguments, tears and sleepless nights to count, damn defeated and win. His case became the national template for medical marijuana in Canada. The client wanted full legalization, so he was disappointed with the result. Oh well. I tried. Had a case where a man refused to pay rent because his apartment smelled terrible and was making him sick. His landlord tried to evict him. A few days after taking the case and before his first hearing, the ceiling in his bathroom collapsed. Turns out some plumbing wasn't connected and his ceiling walls had been filling with poop for weeks, months. The landlord settled pretty quickly after that. Not a lawyer, but my good friend's boyfriend is a big shot lawyer downtown and works on high profile cases. That is the target breach, and he had told us about a case involving a nurse. This nurse was contracted out by a hospital downtown and hired to give flu vaccines to patients residents at a local string of assisted living homes. According to the background information I was given, hepatitis C was very common back in the baby boomer days from lack of knowledge of STDs and lack of effective protection. Apparently this nurse decided it would be a good idea to reuse the needle they had on every single patient. From looking back on the records, one of the first few people she immunized had Hep C and she ended up giving it a bunch of seniors. Wasn't given the exact number, but it was so bad that they had to contact the CDC and consider it an outbreak. The best part was that the family of the elderly were suing the nurse and the nursing homes. The nursing homes were suing the nurse and the hospital that contracted her out. The nurse tried suing the hospital for lack of training. Also, the nurse had been given warnings before and was previously let go from another job because she was reusing needles. TL. Doctor nurse reuses vaccine needle and gives a bunch of old people Hep C. Not a lawyer, but a family friend is. She had someone come to her asking to sue Starbucks because someone spilled their latte or smoothie or whatever on the sidewalk and she slipped on it and hit her head. She claimed Starbucks was at fault because it wouldn't have happened if Starbucks didn't put extra slippery whipped cream in the drink. Not lawyer, but paralegal. I took a cold call one evening from a gentleman who was clearly high, probably meth, and homeless. He wanted to sue his local police dispatch. 911. Paramedics and a hospital. We are a civil litigation firm, because he knocked on someone who was now, allegedly, trying to get him. It was now the police station's fault that he would have to stab the guy, and he repeatedly asked me if he should carry a knife so he could do said stabbing. He apparently had also asked the 911 dispatch this same question, and all they would tell him is that no, he should not in fact go stab someone. Also asked if he should go stab the other guy before he had a chance to get him. He then wanted to come hide at our office while keeping his knife and deciding where to go stab the other guy. Definitely most surreal phone call of my life thus far. And before it's asked. No, we didn't report the situation to anyone. We are in a large city and he said his location was up north. Did not give us his name and we don't have caller ID. Very old boss. Hates technology because he can't understand it, so we really didn't have anything to give the police as far as useful information. Fun times. Not a lawyer, but worked in a law firm. Had a potential client who needed to access something on a high shelf. When she was at work, instead of using the step that was provided, she took it upon herself to take her shoes off, then stand on her chair to reach the shelf. She forgot about her own shoes on the way down and tripped over them. She tried to blame her employers. That's not how it works. Love. There was another woman using a vacuum cleaner in her own home and she tripped over the lead. When we asked who it was in particular, she intended to sue, as there was nothing wrong with the vacuum cleaner and no actual injury. She became confused and confessed she did not know. She just thought she could claim from someone. Pretty tame examples, but amusing at the time. Some people just need saving from themselves. Edit. This was in the UK. For all those wondering. Well, one client asked me to prove that dinosaurs didn't exist. Tried to sue a history book or something. Another customer wanted to sue Lucasfilms for killing his favorite character in the movies, Han Solo. Many years ago when I was still a trainee solicitor, my then mentor wanted me to see a client on his behalf. He didn't give me any details other than he was a new client and I was to take initial instructions. Criminal law BTW. So there I am, keen but wet behind the ears, when this very large man comes into my small office and starts to inquire about the legal age of consent. 16 in my country. He then tells me the reason is he wants to start producing porn and wants to be sure about the law. Well, then that changes the answer, as it is a different question. 18 in my country. He gets upset and animated, saying how he wanted to produce porn that had much younger girls in it, 14ish. I explain the legal implications of this and how he would find himself in jail in very little time. He then goes on to his next idea, which is he wants to produce porn for animals. Not bestiality or anything like that. Videos of two animals making love, and he wants to retail it to domestic pets. At this point my mentor had overheard some if not all of the consultation. Without saying a word he walks into my office. Up to my desk. I kept a picture of my family dog on my desk. He takes the picture of my dog off my desk and leaves the room. It was the strangest consultation I have ever had to this day.